Crossbeats production.
What's going on? You're here with Nate28 and this is Crossbeats production. So as I promised, I want to go through this beat with you guys, go from scratch, basically from the creation of the beat all the way to the mixing and then all the way to the finalization with the mastering of the beat. I figured it would be a really cool thing to do with you guys because I know a lot of you guys kind of asked me, can you mix a song using stock plugins, which I've tried to do the best I can on this mix as well. So mainly stock plugins that I've used to mix it, and also either stock or free, so you guys can access all of these plugins except for one plugin. Actually, no, two plugins that I've used that you might not be able to, get for free. But nonetheless, I want to show you guys that it's possible to create a beat and to mix it, master it, and show you the techniques that I use and go behind the scenes on all that sort of stuff. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let's get straight to it. Alright, so we're back, and basically with this I want to go through the start of the beat. So first off, the first three things that I looked for when I was creating this beat. So mainly what I do when I create most of my beats, there's two ways I go about it. So either one would be using a sample or going off a sample or going off an idea that a sample gave me. And also then getting an instrument and playing around with it and listening to the melody. Then the other part would be either then getting drums and trying to figure out just a drum kit beat and then making the melody to that beat. So there's no way that you can limit making music because it's stupid to do that, and I wouldn't listen to somebody if they said you have to create just on drums or you have to create on rhythm or whatever, on using an instrument or whatever. Do whatever works for you. At the end of the day, it's your music, you're creating it, you want it to sound the way you want it to sound, not somebody else's style. Obviously you can incorporate all different styles into your music, but anyway, that's just another topic altogether. So what I did here to create this first initial beat is the drum kit. So I went in, I listened to a couple of kits that I have, and then I came about the kit that I kind of love going back to. I don't know, it's just something I seem to always keep going back to. And it's a rack kick, which I got out of a sample pack. I'll play the kick for you so you can hear it. And this snare, if you guys have heard this snare, it's probably in a number of tracks right now. And the boom hi-hat, which I got there as well. And then this rim, kind of, not a rim, but it's like more of a cymbal type of thing, which is in this kit here, which I've bounced out. So what I did to create the drums, and the uniqueness of, I guess, any beat is what you try and make different to somebody else. So if you look at this this kit, the drum kit's pretty basic. I mean, it's got a kick snare type of pattern, so I'll just play the actual drums just so you can hear it. And just to mention, all the actual drums are in sample 1, so I've used sample 1 to basically control the envelope and the sustain and the attack of basically every single drum part that I added. So kick, obviously in here you can adjust. I don't know if you guys are familiar with sample 1, but I'll just show you what it looks like. So let me just highlight sample 1 on, say for example, the snare. You can adjust the gain. When you first drop in a sample, you can pretty much get a sample from anywhere. So say you've got your loop files on the side here, or your files, all this stuff here, you can just go highlight 1 and go to center sample 1, and that's where you could get your kick or your snare or whatever you want to put in there. And then you can adjust the amp. So the amplitude allows you to adjust the gain, the velocity. So the velocity thing here allows it to be full velocity, which is basically set to 0 there. Or if you go all the way to the right, it allows the keyboard to adjust the velocity. So whatever MIDI keys you play, it would allow that to adjust the velocity of sample 1. So if you hit go, if you play the snare light, or this hi-hat, I should say, or you can go really heavy. So it's just a good thing if you want to have control over the velocity, especially when, if you're using MIDI like I did here. I've adjusted these by MIDI, and some of these are low velocity, so it just creates a bit of a rhythm in the track as well, and that's something handy to know. So as you can hear with the drum kit, it's kind of it's got like a rhythm to it and movement in that regard. But what I did that was kind of unique to this particular beat was I actually bounced out this I think I don't know if you call it a ride cymbal. I bounced that out and I used it in a sampler, and then I pretty much played the sample so it played off a portion of the start of the samples. So if you just listen to the ride, I'll just get rid of these here and just play the ride. So if you can hear how the ride, it just kind of goes and goes through the beat. But then at the last part and at the start of the actual, I think it's an 8-bar loop, it goes in reverse. So all I've done is highlighted that, hit Command and then R, which reverses it. If you don't know the hotkey for that, that's what it is on the Logic keyboard, at least anyway. So you can reverse the music, whatever you want, do whatever you want with it really, but I've just reversed it and allowed it to move into the motion of up and then down. So I mean, that's kind of a unique thing. If you don't know about stuff like this, try it out in your beat and see how you go. So that's the drum kit there. The snare, all I've done here as far as mixing, I'll explain all of this in just a moment. I just want to go through a few other things with the track. So the next thing I did, once I had the kit kind of going and the drums how I wanted them to sound, I just worked around with the rhythm of the track. So then it went to the instruments. So the main instrument in this track is this Electrax, which is a synth that you guys probably know about. It's Tone 2 Electra 2. Has some really good sounds in it, and I use it a lot on different beats that I have. You could probably use stock sounds if you wanted to, but I just got this sound out of here. So let's solo that and play the sound. Alright, cool. So you get it, it kind of goes up in an octave and then down an octave, and then I cut it off and then I repeat basically the same kind of process throughout the beat. Just mix it around a bit so it sounds a little bit different throughout the beat and it doesn't just bore you with one sound. The way I created this sound inside of here was basically a preset that I found, and I kind of edited it a little bit. And the cool thing about this is you can actually drag these things to wherever you want them. So it could be a cutoff at whatever you want. And then you can adjust the attack, you know, the ADSR. So basically the attack, sustain, decay, release, and all that jazz that you guys know what ADSR does anyway. So basically that controls this filter here. So I've allowed the ADSR, attack, decay, sustain, and release control this filter. So it basically cuts the filter off in a sharp kind of fashion using this as a trigger. So basically this, I guess it's a saw wave, is triggering the filter that cuts off the filtering there. So that's why it creates that kind of sound that I've got going on. I've only got one synth going on this particular synth that I'm using. You know, you could use up to 4 if you wanted to, but there's no point. I just wanted that one sound. So that's the first part of the synth that I started to mess with, and I'll show you the keys that I've got. This is in the key of E. And it's just like an arpeggiated type of sound that you've got going on here, which I'll just highlight and show you that. So basically, it's pretty straightforward. If you use Studio One, which you guys probably do if you're watching my videos, if you don't, you can use any other DAW to do this, it doesn't matter. But in this particular program, Studio One, you can set the scale, and then you can go to whatever, you know, if you want to go to minor, harmonic minor, melodic minor, major, whatever. You could do that. I went to Phrygian, which is E Phrygian, and it's pretty much all of the white keys basically. So it allowed me to just play on those keys and get some sort of melody going on with the track. So that gave me the melody and then the drums, so I'll just isolate those two together. So as you can hear, it sounds quite good already, to my ear at least anyway, it does. And then I just figured, okay, what can I add that's going to add some melody and flavor to the track? So the next thing I thought was, I need another synth maybe to be on the sides, just the sides, so it really sticks out on the sides and gives you that 3D kind of image. So what I decided to do was then get another Electrax, which is kind of the same synth. But what I've done here is I've only put it in sections. So in the first original part of the beat, it comes in a full 8 bars, and then another 8 bars. and then it goes on to the final next part where it gets just a section on two bars and then cuts off, and the last 2 bars of that as well. So if you're, I think it's 4 bars. Yeah. Anyway, yep. So anyway, if you're looking at the synth there, I've got that synth, which basically is another Electrax thing that I've created, kind of using a preset, and then I've just edited it a little bit. And then I've used the last part to go wide on this particular synth, which I'll show you what I'm doing here. So these 3 tracks here, if I just highlight these 3 are the main ones that create the center channel, which is the main synth, and then the 2 on the left. So I've got 1 on the left and then 1 on the right. So you can see Electrax is doing both of that, and all I've done here is just use a synth. I've just bounced out basically the same rhythm, but using a different synth on both the left and right. So let me just play those to you. So they're quite quiet, they're not too loud, and you don't really need them to be that loud. And the reason is because they're on the sides. So I'm not trying to get, some crazy loudness on the sides going on. I just wanted something there to really tease the ear. And that's the main reason why I use these 2 to pan left and right. And, got that result that I got. So if you play them all together. So they all kind of go well together and they blend, and it gives you that width, the stereo width that you're after. So you don't have to worry about, using a big, massive panning tool to try and get things wider in the mix. I mean, you could use something like this, which I've got on later on. I'll explain that to you in the mixing part of this video. This is probably going to be part 3 or whatever. But anyway, this is something that I use to minimize the stereo image, but you could use that to also create width if you wanted to, if you had ozone or something similar to it. Waves make tools that can expand the stereo image as well. But anyway, that's just another trick that you can use. Just use panning instead of the stereo width expander tools. It just works really well. And if you know that a lot of the old music, it used to use panning left and right, could have been the drum kit, could have been a vocal, whatever's on the left and right, they use that to create stereo width with a lot of the older music. So same techniques apply here. So then the next thing from the synth I did was create another little synth track that I'm not actually using anymore. But what I did here then is kind of blend it, and I bounced it out to be something a little bit different and added a few bits of distortion, reversed parts of the track. So a lot of stuff went into just this part here, which I kind of wanted to feature as a breakup from the first part of the track to the second part. So let me just play that for you and show you what that sounds like. Okay, so you can hear it's going left and right, and it's also kind of reversed, and things are going on with that. So let me show you what I did to kind of give you an idea how I made it. So this is the first part. I think it's slightly reversed, but not. Okay, so we'll just mute that, and then I'll unmute this one, and I'll show you what this one sounds like. So that was the original synth right there. That's what it first sounded like, and the way I got that was by using the same exact notes that I had in this first one, which I'll show you the MIDI for again. I had the same exact notes, and with the synth that I had, it was in Electrax. I think I've actually hidden the synth at this stage. I have. So that was part of a synth that I first had that I used in Electrax, and I don't even know what the name of it was, to be honest, anymore to tell you. But what I did was I went in there, I had two, let me just see if I can find it. So I had 2 synths on here, and basically all I did was play around with the synth and the octave as well. I went up an octave and down an octave, and that's why it's got so much bass and also high, top end on it. So that's how I kind of got that sound, and it kind of just played like you can hear. So then all I did then to kind of get the sound that I was looking for, I reversed sections of it. So as you could hear with this other one that I already showed you, I reversed sections of it. And that was the whole thing reversed. And then I reversed that other sections of it again. So I just went into there, cut certain sections up like this, and just did Control R, which reverses it. And it ended up, I can't even tell you exactly how I got to the point where I was. It just ended up sounding the way it did, and I really liked it. And I was like, okay, that'll do. That's good. So I worked with that until I got that sound that I was after. So just so you know, be creative with your tracks and don't just limit yourself to one sound that comes out of the synth. Go in there, and once you've got the sound that you like, bounce it out, like I said, and all you have to do to actually, I'll show you how to do that, actually, if you want to know. So for example, we'll just use this one, and if you right click on your mouse and go to mix selection, mix down selection, sorry, that will actually bounce the synth out into an audio track. And then it gives you the ability to go in there and edit it and change it and do whatever you want to it. You can reverse it, flip it, put delay on it, whatever suits your track. So now you can see I've got the audio file there, and say if I wanted to bounce this and then just cut it up a bit, like in 4 sections, 8 sections, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then cut this up maybe in another section there. And you could just go around and maybe reverse sections of it, keep that in its way, and reverse this, and then keep that, and then reverse that, and then go in there and just highlight again, and make sure that when you're bouncing it again into itself, just have this create auto fade, so it creates an auto fade on the track. And then you can go command and then bounce. So you just saw how crazy that was. I mean, I didn't even do anything, and it just sounds really good. Like, it just sounds out there and completely strange, and nobody would be able to replicate that because it's exactly how you did it, and somebody would have to go in there and try and figure out what synth you used, and then try and figure out, you know, how many times you flipped it around or reversed it or whatever. It's just, I don't know, there's stuff like that that you can do on your tracks to make things unique. So the next thing after that I decided to do, once I kind of got this break in the track and, you know, just thought it sounded good and wanted to stick with it, I started to do something separate with the bass line. So I'll show you the bass line that I created first in just a second. So let's just play this as a whole and listen to what it sounds like. Alright, cool. So now what you could do, and maybe I might do it, I don't know, is you could start, you know, with this synth, for example, you could start adding reverb as a feed, like something like that, into another track, another part of the track, so it creates up a bit of a break of the track. So, I mean, just little things that mess stuff up. I just think it's fantastic to go in there and try and figure out if you can make it sound different or whatever. But that's just, you know, just an idea there. So anyway, let's get into the bass and see what I did with that. So first off, with the bass track, I went to the bass, and I'll just show you the MIDI that I've got. So this is in, I guess, you know, the same sort of setting that I went from octave and then down and then up again, just kind of going in the fifths if I could and working around it. But this particular one, it just sounds straightforward. So let's play the bass to you. So what I've done here with the bass, I'll just highlight this a little bit bigger so you can see what's going on. So there we go. We've got the bass keys. We've got B, which it starts at the high note, and we'll go down to C and then E. I don't need to explain that to you. So what I've done to create that kind of that slide up, or the glide I should say, is I've put a really high note just above it, and it's a different note, but it highlights the note and brings it straight up and then back down. And the way it's doing that, because what I'm using is the synth, which obviously you guys are familiar with, Serum. If you don't know about it, then I don't know. Anyway, so Serum pretty much allows you to do a lot of different stuff. It's pretty crazy synth, and I use it a lot for creating bass lines and just different synths inside of trap music. So it's got this portamento section here, which allows basically a glide, and you set it to mono, and then it will allow it to glide up and back down. And you can adjust how fast you want it to go, as well as different things inside the synth. But the main things on this is distortion and some hype dimension, compression, reverb, EQ, and a filter. So that's the main basis for that bass instrument, and that's why it sounds, I guess, so growly and stuff like that. And I could share this, I guess, if you guys ever asked for it, but I could share the preset that I created. But anyway, it's up to you. Create whatever works for your track and listen to the track and then figure out what you think it needs. So with that bass then, all I did was to create different sections. First off, I had this as the MIDI then, and then I kept that for most of the track. As you can see, if I go along, majority of it is the same. The next part where it changes though is I cut a section out here, so this blanked out right up here. If I just get rid of that, so this section here is completely bass free, and I've just allowed that synth to breathe on its own, and then I've started it again. But what I've done here, let's highlight it again. What I've done here is started to change the way the bass actually goes. So as you can see here with the glide, it hits the glide, hits another glide, another one, but then I've taken out the glide altogether and I just stopped that. So I could change the actual bass just a little bit, so it tricks the ear to think, oh, there's something different going on for a little bit of the track. And then I reintroduce some of that, but at a lower octave with the bass notes as well. So, I mean, just little things like that, you can play around with your own instruments, figure out what you want, and get it how you like it to sound. So then, the piano, the next part and the final part that I think I finish adding to the track. The other thing I'll just show you at the end as well is, I'll just keep that in mind. Let me just show you the piano first. So this piano track, how I created this was using, I'll show you actually, if I can. I used the quarter and I messed around with the chords till I got something that I wanted. So I had the quarter on here and I used, I think it was it was one of these groups here. No, wait, it was a jazz one, I think. Let's go back here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I used it on minor seventh to figure out the chords, and I played around with it for a bit until I got something that sounded the way I wanted it to sound with the right, the key structure and stuff like that. Obviously, it has to be in key. The quarter doesn't put things in key. You have to actually make it go in key. So I messed around with it and kind of got, the structure of the piano that I wanted. And I'll just play that to you now so you can hear it. Okay, so the quarter doesn't always play things how you want it to sound, but it's a really good creative tool to start with. And the basis of the quarter then gave me ideas to work with different things. So what I did here was I left some of these notes in the position they were at, but then I went in there and adjusted some, so it kind of gave a bit of a blend into the notes. So it's just a different way of playing. If you're playing the actual piano, you're not exactly going to press the notes all at the one time when you're playing it, and the quarter does that. So you want to try and get away from that automated sound that it gives you and make it sound like a human's playing it. The other thing that I did with the piano then was I added this action here inside of the actions tab. You've got humanize, which allows the piano to be played more like a human and in different position as well, and the notes were louder, some quieter, some louder. It just depends on how they were played. And this is really handy to use if you are, especially just using, electronic music and you're trying to get it from a synth or trying to get it from a VST, like a played instrument. Some of them don't sound as realistic if you're just hitting the notes all at one go. You want to play it so it sounds more like a real piano. So that's a little tip there as well. So finally, the track kind of came out as I showed you, and the final, product was basically this. Okay, so you guys get the gist of it. I'll go through the final part of the track at a later date on this video. The next couple of videos, I want to do a part 2, 3, and 4, and maybe a 5. But the main parts that I want to go through in the next video is the mixing of this track. So if you guys enjoyed this video, remember to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and also make any comments below about what you want to see further in this video, or if you want to see anything else on my channel as well. Let me know, hit me up, and we'll keep doing this. And as per usual, guys, catch you on the next one. Peace out.